Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
Is this real?
This is real.
Really?
This is really real. I'm looking at it very, very seriously. I'll make a decision soon. Politicians are all talk, no action. I deal with them all the time. I've done very well with politicians. I will tell you, Bret, our country is going to hell. We have people running the country that don't know what they're doing. This is absolutely real. And you see it a little bit in the polls. I do great in the polls. The one that just came out today, do great, beat most of them. And then they say, but he's not running. And I still do well in the polls. So let's see what happens. If I announce, it's going to be very interesting.
People look at you and say, hey, listen, he's successful. He's got a lot of things going. He's on TV. Why do this? Why put yourself through this? Why put your family through this?
A lot of people ask me that question. And my family, to a certain extent, asks me that question. We have a great life. I've built a great, great company. You've seen that when I did filings. You'll see even better if I do other filings. I mean, it's a phenomenal company. And this is really what the country needs. It needs a certain type of thinking. We owe $18 trillion. We're going to 21 trillion and ultimately 24, which is a magic word. You know, 24 trillion, that's the magic number. That's like the point of no return. And we're there very quickly. We're going to end up being another Greece, and maybe we're going to end up being another Detroit, because that's where our country is going. We need proper leadership.
Well, let's talk about some issues, first of all. Immigration.
Right.
How do you deal with it?
You got to stop the border. You got to clog up that border. You have to stop Mexico from sending everybody over here. People don't realize Mexico is not our friend. They have done a number on us like very few people have done. We have to build the wall. We have to stop people from coming in, and you have to stop it now. We can't afford it. The wrong people are coming. You have people coming that are gang members, that are murderers, that are killers, and you have some good people coming, certainly. But they're not sending their good people. I mean, just think of it, the country. They're not sending, oh, gee, let's send wonderful people. They're sending their bad apples, and we're getting a lot of bad apples. And you go along that border, and you see what's happening in terms of crime. You've got to clog up the border. We have to build a wall. Nobody can build a wall like Trump can build a wall, believe me. That's one thing everybody agrees on.
What do you do with the 11 million plus here?
Well, I believe in a merit system. It's very hard, and it's easy for me as a very conservative person to say everybody has to get out. But you know, from a human standpoint, that doesn't happen. But you know what? If they're bad, we throw them the hell out. And you have plenty of bad ones. In that 11 million group, you have a lot of bad ones. But you have some great ones. And I believe in the merit system. If somebody's done a great job and really done that wonderful job and had a productive period of time, you start letting them go through a system. But the bad ones, you get them out, and you get them out fast. And we have a lot of bad ones.
National debt, you mentioned it. It's a huge issue. How do you tackle it?
Well, you tackle it easily. China is destroying this country. Other countries are destroying this country with trade. What's going on with trade in this country is unbelievable. You have to stop it, because and it's all manipulation of currency. You know, we make better product than they make in China, but they manipulate their currency brilliantly, and they're taking away our jobs, they're taking away our manufacturing, and we have to bring it back. So we have to be strong on China, strong on trade.
And how do you turn it around? I mean, obviously, a lot of politicians have talked about a lot of things. Some have talked about dealing with entitlements. Some have talked about a pro-growth agenda, but nothing seems to have turned it around.
Bret, we have tremendous potential in this country. But every country that does business with us rips us, because we have people that are incompetent negotiators. I call Obama the 5-for-1. That's a typical negotiation. We have one traitor. We get him back, and we give 5 killers that are out now trying to kill everybody, including this country. And they were leaders. They were really the ones they wanted, those 5. That's called a trade. That's a bad trade. It's a terrible trade. Well, the trade's on other countries. When we deal with China, when we deal with Brazil, when we deal with Mexico, when we deal with Japan, which is really starting to rear its head again, as you probably have seen and heard. And they're manipulating their currency very low. They're bringing it down. It's going to be very hard to compete. We have to have somebody that knows what they're doing. Politicians don't know. They don't understand. They don't have a clue. They talk. Now, I deal with politicians all my life. I've made a lot of money dealing with politicians. They're easy. They're all talk. They're no action. What they are great at is self-preservation. They keep their job. That's all they want to do, is keep their job. but they don't want to do good for the country. That I can tell you.
Healthcare. What do you do about Obamacare?
Got to repeal it. It's got to end. It's a disaster. And don't forget, Obamacare doesn't really kick in. The negative impact doesn't kick in until 16. So Obama said, not only with certain companies and certain groups of people like Congress as to getting Obamacare, he didn't want it during his administration. Very smart. One of the smarter things, frankly, that he's done. It kicks in 16. It's going to be a disaster. I believe in health care. You've got to take care of people. I have a big heart. I'm conservative with a very, very big heart. But Obamacare is a disaster. It's going to destroy the country. And it's bad, bad health care. It's horrible. So I would have a plan that would be a fabulous plan. But with all of that being said, you've got to take care of people. You have to repeal Obamacare. We have to come up with something much better and much less expensive, but at the same time better.
Is it possible
Yes.
to get Congress on the same page with one thing?
You have to get him in the room. You have to get him in the room. He doesn't talk to anybody. He writes executive orders because he can't get along with anybody. He doesn't talk to anybody. He doesn't even talk to the Democrats anymore. He's the executive order king. And then in 5 years, we'll find out whether or not it held up in the court system. No, we have a disaster in this country. We have a president who is either incompetent or has bad intentions. I personally think he doesn't have bad intentions. I think he's incompetent. A lot of people disagree with me on that. But we are in big, big trouble in this country.
Foreign policy. You've been critical of the Iran negotiations and this framework of a deal. What would you do?
Well, let's take a look at that deal. There's another one of our great negotiations, whether it's 5 for 1 or Iran. Just a little thing. We have 3 people over there, probably 4 or 5, but we have 3 people over there. You have the minister, you have a soldier. Wonderful people. They shouldn't be over there. Why doesn't he say, like, at the beginning, hey, fellas, you're dealing with Iran, right? Fellas, let them go. Let them go. Doesn't mean a thing to you. It's going to make us all look good. Going to make me look good. Going to make the country. You guys are going to. It's going to set off right. Let them go. It wasn't even mentioned during the negotiation. They didn't mention it. Now, is it that important? To me, it's important. But is it that in the overall? You know, when you're talking about nuclear, no. But it sets a great little example. Fellas, let them go. They shouldn't be there. Come on. They'll do it. If I said to them, let them go, they do it. They don't even ask. Now, if you look at what's gone on with the plan, it's a disaster. We're not getting rid of nuclear. In fact, I think what's going to happen is the world is now going to arm with nuclear because of this. This is a disaster for our country. And also, when you look at what happened, their negotiator goes back, and in the streets all over Iran, they're celebrating. And he's like a big hero. He's like Mickey Mantle just hit the big home run. The guy is being celebrated as a huge hero. They think they made a great deal. And you know what? They did. Nobody's celebrating over here because even the ones that are saying it's okay, it's sort of very mixed. And I actually thought that what he was doing was setting the stage not to do a deal. Because I really thought, you know, he'd look really tough and smart if he walked out. And I was predicting maybe he'll walk out. But they're not smart. They're not. I wrote the book, The Art of the Deal. #1 selling business book of all time, I think. Pretty close, right? Almost everybody read it. This is not the art of the deal. This is a bunch of checker players playing with grandmasters. You know, the Persians and the Iranians, they're very, very good negotiators. And we have people that don't have a clue. I mean, I like John Kerry. He's a nice person. He's not a negotiator. So it's very sad what's happening to the country. And I think, frankly, you just hit on it, the biggest issue facing the world is nuclear. And when people talk about global warming, in the meantime, you tell the people up in Boston about global warming where they have 12 feet of snow and can't get out of their house. When Obama says the biggest issue facing us is global warming, the biggest issue facing us is nuclear warming, because that's the real warming. And if we don't have tough, smart people that know how to deal, you're going to have a catastrophe like never in the history of the world before. So the biggest problem confronting this country is nuclear, and the fact is we have incompetent people representing us.
So when the president says, well, what are you going to do? I mean, if you're not going to do this, are you going to go to war? What do you think of that
I think
argument?
the sanctions would just absolutely bring them to their knees. Now, if it doesn't, and if they want to do nuclear, then you're going to have to start dropping something on them very, very severely, because you cannot allow Iran to have nuclear. I mean, the general was on television 2 days ago saying the survival of Israel is non-negotiable. I mean, it's not going to. How can you do this? And then we're negotiating, so they don't even control their own general. You know, these negotiators, in theory, are over and above the general. Well, how's he talking about? He's saying we're going to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. And then you have Obama that doesn't even get along with Israel. And one of the amazing things, I have a lot of Jewish friends who supported Obama. They are absolutely saying, what the hell did we do? He's the worst thing that ever happened to Israel. So we need tough, smart people. All we're doing with this negotiation is making Iran rich, because we're taking off the sanctions. They're going to become rich. Now, they're fighting us in Yemen. So wouldn't you think during the negotiation, Bret would say, listen, a couple of things. You got to get out of Yemen fast. Just get out. Nobody even brought it up. They don't talk like that. You know, it only takes a few seconds. That statement takes a few seconds. And if it's properly delivered, they're going to get out. But we have a bunch of stiffs. We have, in the business we call them stiffs, we have a bunch of stiffs. We have people that are diplomats who don't want to offend anybody. They're very nice people, but they're not for this. They're not doing the job. And that job is the most important job. But you have a country that we're negotiating with, and they're fighting in Yemen, essentially fighting us. So it's a very sad thing. Now, on your show, years ago, I said that Iran was going to take over Iraq. Because I was never a big fan of what they did in Iraq, because I knew the Iraqis, once we leave, and who wants to stay there forever. And that's when I came up with the thing. At least we get something, because we lost thousands of lives. We spent $2 trillion on the Iraq war, and wounded all over New York, all over Florida. I see the wounded. I let them come to Mar-a-Lago. I have parties. I love those people, because they're braver than I am. But they're walking around without legs, without arms, and worse than that. And this is what we get for Iraq. We got nothing. So you remember, I said, keep the oil. Everyone said, oh, you can't say that. That's such a terrible thing. Not everybody. The smart people didn't say that. But the people that don't know what they're doing said, oh, it's a sovereign country. Well, Iraq has the second largest oil reserves in the world after Saudi Arabia. People don't know that. Massive. I said, keep the oil. We didn't keep the oil. You know who has the oil now? ISIS. They have the oil. And the other one is Iran. Soon will have the oil, because they're basically taking over Iraq, which is what I said. I said, and I said this 5 years ago. I didn't say this like 2 days ago. And you know it because you interviewed me and I said it, and a lot of people said, no way. You know, you had two countries that were sort of equal. They were, you know, you go 5 feet this way, 5 feet this way, they fight for 10 years, then they both get tired and they live, right? Well, we decapitated one of those two countries. So the other country is just going in and taking over. So Iran is really controlling Iraq right now. But between ISIS and Iran, they have all the wealth and they have all the oil. And it's not going to stop. The reason it's not going to stop is because they have no respect for our leadership.
So that's the bottom line. You say establish respect. It affects Russia, Putin, negotiating, China, Mexico. That's your sense.
Well, Russia, I mean, I was with Putin a year ago, and I will tell you, I think he's a guy that can be dealt with. But he doesn't like Obama. He doesn't respect Obama. And I believe he's somebody that can be dealt with. And if he can't, you do some heavy numbers on him and this and that, right? But I think that he is somebody that can actually be dealt with. I was over there. I owned the Miss Universe pageant. And we had a tremendous success. It was in Moscow. And I got to meet many, many of the Russian leaders. And, hey, do you think they want war? They don't want war. Moscow was thriving. Now all of a sudden it's all messed up, and the relationship with this country is all messed up. But I met many of them because intelligently they all wanted to go and see the Miss Universe. So it was sort of easy to meet them, right? They all came into a room. But we could get along with people, but we need proper leadership, and we need great negotiators. We have bad negotiators. We have people that are, you know, gave a political contribution, and they get some job, and all of a sudden they're negotiating nuclear weapons. We need great negotiators. We need smart people. We don't have them right now.
Let's go back domestically. Taxes. As President Trump, what would you do?
I wouldn't raise taxes. If anything, I'd lower taxes. And the reason is, I will take there's going to be taxes. What I'm going to do is take back business from China, take back business from Vietnam, take back business from all these countries that are manufacturing. We're going to start manufacturing in this country. You know, in China, they make something, they sell it over here, no tax. We make something and sell it in China. Number one, you can't go through the red tape. It's almost impossible. Number two, there's a tax. A friend of mine was telling me the other day, he's in the manufacturing business. He makes something. He said, oh, the tax of China. I said, when we send, I said, what do you mean? They charge you? They're charging you like a big tax? He said, it's a massive tax. If we're selling into China, it's a massive tax. When they sell into us, it's nothing. Because we have people that don't know what they're doing. And it's unfair. And our companies can't compete with that. You just can't compete with it. So I guarantee you there won't be devaluations of their currency when I'm around and if I decide to do this and if I win. And our country will become great again, and our country will become rich again. Now, rich doesn't sound nice. People say, oh, that's a terrible thing to say, our country's going to be rich. Well, without being rich, we can't be great. And I'd be the only Republican that would say, I'm not going to cut Social Security. I'm going to make it stronger, but I'm not going to cut it. I'm not going to cut Medicare or Medicaid. I'm not going to cut it. Because I will take in so much money, and we will make this country so powerful and rich again, and therefore great, that you won't have to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. No, we'll get rid of the fraud, which is massive, and we'll get rid of the waste. But you won't have to cut it. So I'll probably be the only one that says that.
So will you put out a specific plan if you're going to run?
Sure.
A tax plan?
Sure.
Corporate taxes,
I'll do it.
personal?
I'll do it. I mean, you have to sort of go by your wits a little bit when you're in there, and you have to negotiate. So you can put out a plan, but you want to negotiate with Congress. You want to get along with them. You want to actually bring them over to the White House, or I'll go to them. Like to save some money because the guards, you know, everything, when Obama, I'll give you an example. So 2 weeks ago, he goes to Hawaii. Goes to Hawaii. He takes Air Force One. His wife leaves almost at the same time. She takes another Boeing. So you have a Boeing 757, and you have a Boeing 747 going in the same direction almost at the identical time. Now you tell me, is that right? Is that right? They go out to do television shows in the same area, Burbank. I guess it was Burbank, California. They're landing at, I believe, the same airport. One leaves an hour or two early. You don't think maybe Mrs. Obama or the president could have said, you know what, let's sort of take one plane. You know the kind of millions and millions, and we're not talking about like for $5,000 more. We're talking about millions and millions of dollars. And that's what it is. One thing interesting, I talk about it and some people think, so I see the Chinese president and delegation is being honored at the White House during the Obama administration. And they have a third-rate tent sitting on the White House lawn. It looks terrible, not good for security. So I call up David Axelrod. I say, David, I will give you free of charge $100 million ballroom, and nobody builds them better than I build them. Mar-a-Lago, many of them. I'm building one right now on Pennsylvania Avenue that's going to be the talk of Washington, D.C., at the old post office site. I said, nobody builds better than I build. What I do best is build. I'm going to give you a $100 million ballroom. We can set up all sorts of commissions. You'll pick the look. You'll pick everything. We'll hire the 5 greatest architects, have each one of them come in with a plan so that everybody's happy, because it is the White House. But you need to have a ballroom. I will give it to you free, no charge. You pick it, we'll design it, it'll be fantastic. Never heard back from them.
You did the same with the UN.
I did the same with the UN. So the head of the Swedish delegation calls me up. He said, Mr. Trump, you just built a 90-story building across the street, and I read where it cost $325 million. We're spending $4 billion to renovate a much smaller building at the United Nations. Could I ask you, did I read that right? He says to me, did I read it? It cost $325. It's called Trump Tower. You know, it's another Trump building, a great building, a great building. It's called Trump World Tower, right opposite the United Nations. Magnificent, got all sorts. Herbert Muchamp of the New York Times, a great architectural critic, gave it rave reviews. Everybody loves it. Very successful. $325 million. It's actually 92 stories in terms of feet. It's 92 stories tall. So he called up. He said, how come you're spending $325 and we're spending $4 billion to fix up some buildings? I say, because of 2 reasons: corruption and incompetence. So I looked at their plan. I asked the major person that was in charge, are you using a boiler system or New York steam? He didn't know. Okay? Had no idea what he was even talking about. This is the guy that was in charge. So I said, two things. You have very corrupt people there, and you have really corrupt, and you have very incompetent people. People are going to make a fortune. So I met with the head of the United Nations. I told him about the plan, and all he wanted to do is have pictures taken with photographers. In fact, I was sitting with him all by myself. All of a sudden, doors open, and there are like hundreds of photographers outside. I said, no, I thought I was just going to tell you about this thing. So all he wanted to do is that. That's all he cared about. I said, listen, I can save you about $3 billion. Now,
Billion with a B.
$3 billion. He said, well, what will the difference be between yours and theirs? I said, here's the difference. Mine will be better. I'll use marble. They're going to use terrazzo. Mine will be much better, much richer, a finer building, better in every way. It'll be a finer renovation. And you don't have to move out. They're going to occupy other buildings throughout the city while they did this. I said, I'll do 5 floors at a time. It works beautifully. I've done it before. I built the Grand Hyatt Hotel on 42nd Street. I did that. I've done it before. I said, you don't even have to move out. And you'll save $3 billion, $3.5 billion. And it's going to be a much better job and a much richer job. He said, oh, wow, thank you very much. Never heard from him. So these are the people we have running the country and, to a certain extent, the world.
So you think that business experience can translate to the U.S. government?
I don't think. I know. Of course it can. With heart. In fact, look at Obama with the African-American population. They've never done worse. Setting records for poverty, for unemployment, for everything. You would have thought, first black president, he would have been great for the African-Americans. He's been a disaster. He's been a total disaster. I would get everybody working. Everybody would love it. And you wouldn't have to worry about minimum wage because they'd be doing a lot better than minimum wage. But I'd take the jobs back from China. I'd take the jobs back from Japan, where they're sending cars in here by the millions. You never saw anything like it. The boats in New York, where I live, I say, man, look at that boat. Brand new, gorgeous. Japanese cars. Japanese cars. Now we have another one. The new China is going to be Mexico, because Mexico is just eating our lunch. You know, they just took a big plant away from Tennessee. You heard that probably. $1 billion auto plant going to Mexico. It was expected to go to Tennessee. They just decided to go to Mexico. So then Mexico makes it, rip us off, charge us tax. But when those cars are made in Mexico, they're sent to the United States tax-free, no problem.
You know,
stuff like that, Bret, would stop. You understand?
You know the dig on you and the concern about you, that this is all about the brand. Why is this time different than 1999 or 2007 or 2011 when you talked about it and looked at it? Why is this different?
Simple. I looked at it twice. The first time wasn't serious. Last time was very serious. I was very, very disappointed in Mitt Romney. You play golf, you play sports, you're a very good athlete. Some people choke. He choked. He failed. He should have done great. He should have beaten Obama. That was a race that should have been beaten. I love what I'm doing. I love building. I love the tremendous success of The Apprentice. I love all the things I'm doing. I fix things. I took the old post office. Wait till you see it. In a year from now, it'll be the finest hotel in the country. This club is one of the most successful clubs. You know that. On the Potomac River, the whole place is on the longest stretch of privately owned land on the Potomac River. I own it. No partners, no anything. I fixed it. It's one of the most successful clubs in Washington, Virginia, Maryland. It's like there's nothing like it. I mean, it's a big, big success. Doral. It was a sick puppy. It's now the hottest resort in the United States. I fix it. I fix things. I make things better. I fix them. This country can be made great. It's not great right now. People laugh at us. And if I run, my slogan is, make America great again. I have to add the word again because I have to do it. Make America great again. So I was very disappointed in Mitt Romney. He choked. I even called his people. I said, where are you? We had the hurricane. We had all the problems. And all of a sudden, I see Obama out there with Chris Christie and others. And he's, the rain's pouring down. Look good. Hey, good for votes. Okay, does it mean anything? No, but it's good for votes. I said to Mitt Romney, why aren't you out there? He was sitting in his house for like a month. He didn't do anything. And he ended up losing the election. I see Obama, and I give him a lot of credit. I give Obama a lot of credit. He's on Jay Leno. He's on Fallon. He's on David Letterman. He's on all of them. I said, where are you? Why aren't you going on the shows? I think you're getting killed. And then I listened to Fox. You know, Karl Rove was a total, he spent $436 million, didn't win one election. Okay, you explain that one. But I listened to Karl Rove, how Romney's going to win. And I said, I don't think so, because I don't see Romney anywhere. I see Obama, but I don't see Romney. Even Bret Baier, even Hannity, who's a great guy, he was telling me, I tried to get him on the show. It's like impossible. Couldn't get him on the show. That's a friendly show, in all fairness. Let's face it. It's a pretty friendly show to him. I wouldn't say that Obama likes it, but to him. But he disappeared for a month and he lost the election. And when I listened to Karl Rove, I respect Karl Rove, but when I listened to Karl Rove and others, they were all saying, like, the election's over. And I kept saying, I don't think so, because Obama's on all these shows. I mean, the night before the election, he's doing the whole circuit, and Romney's sitting in a house someplace. So something happened to Romney. I think he choked, to be honest with you. And I was very tough on him. I think I'm the one that kept him out of the race, because when he was going to run, everybody said, oh, isn't that wonderful? And I said, we don't want a guy that chokes running again. He choked and let us down. Because I happen to think that it was easier to beat Obama, who was a failed president, than to beat Hillary right now. She's got her own problems. But I actually think it was easier to beat Obama, a failed president, than it is to beat Hillary, who's now a woman, and people are going to say, oh, we need a woman president, with all of her flaws. He should have won that race, but he choked. I don't think he'll be endorsing me if I run. Do you agree? And I helped him a lot. By the way, I helped him. You know it. I helped him a lot. But I don't expect an endorsement.